Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the show created for you, the armed citizen. Join our hosts and subject matter experts as we talk about guns and gear, practical training and knowledge, Second Amendment issues, and the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hey folks, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. What is the Shooters Nation? That's you. You are. That's right. You are the Shooters Nation, and this is the only talk show on the internet that was designed specifically from the ground up for you, the everyday armed American citizen. If you like what you're hearing on the show, we hope that you'll support us. How can you do that? I'm glad you asked. You can do that several ways. First, you can subscribe to us on whichever app or channel you use to listen to the podcast. Second, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/shootersnation. Third, you can share us with your friends. You can do that one for free. And fourth, last but not least, we hope that you'll leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or whichever other channel or distribution point you're using to listen to the show. We also hope that you'll connect with us after the show. The hub for all things Shooters Nation is shootersnation.com. That's where you'll find links to all of our social media and the full catalog of our shows, complete with supplemental information. This episode is made possible in part by U.S. Law Shield. At any given moment, situations of self-defense and emergencies can happen to anyone. And unfortunately, the justice system may not always be on your side. While you protect your family and property, U.S. Law Shield is there to defend you 24/7, 365 with the most comprehensive self-defense legal coverage at an affordable price. Visit shootersnation.com/US Law Shield to sign up today and receive 2 free months on an annual membership. I'm your host, David Yancey. Mark was unfortunately unable to make it for this recording, so you guys have to tolerate me solo this time, unless you count my nice little glass of Evan Williams single barrel bourbon. Mark and I have both had some really challenging personal schedules lately, and as much as he really wanted to record together this week, we just couldn't pull it off, guys. But the show must go on. The audience demands it, so here we are. This episode is kind of an editorial of sorts, and I want to preface it by saying this. This show is not for you. It's for someone you know, and you should share it with them because it's the right thing to do, but this show's not aimed at you. Seriously, this show practically isn't for our listeners at all. Our listeners are some of the smartest, most responsible, best-looking gun owners on the planet. It's a proven fact. The cameras on your smartphones send us pictures of you doing whatever you do when you're listening to us, and we've seen what you look like and what you're doing. And some of you honestly need to stop doing that one particular thing that you do, especially when you're listening to us and you think no one's watching. But for real, I don't want any of our listeners to be offended by the things that we're going to say on this episode, because I really do believe that our audience isn't guilty of this stuff. I know for a fact that our listeners do know people like this because I know people like this. And I've been to gun stores and shooting ranges and gun shows and a political rally or two, and I've seen these people. And something tells me you've seen them as well. I've seen it, and so have our listeners. So this episode, it's really just a chance for me to say some of the things that our smart, polite, responsible, good-looking listeners would love to say themselves, which means that I'm providing a service to the 2A community. So, dear listener, share this episode with the people who need it. Just casually drop a link to it on your social media, and if you're feeling bold, tag someone in it. And you get to be the good guy. I'll be the bad guy, saying all the things that you would like to say, and you just get to sit back and smile and imagine what your friends' reactions are to what I'm about to tell them. So, this may be a short episode. Editorial content. May do a couple more of these this year. We'll see how it goes. Way back in January of this year, 2019, I recorded episode number 42, challenging folks to make 2019 the year that they put an end to Second Amendment slacktivism and stop outsourcing defense of the Second Amendment to big organizations. In that episode, I challenge people to start contacting their elected representatives directly because politicians care more about thousands of individual voters holding them accountable than they care about big gun rights organizations doing the same. Now, this year has been an absolute train wreck for the NRA. And it's even more important now than ever for people to do exactly what I called for back in January and to take up the banner of defending the Second Amendment individually. What I said back in episode number 42 apparently wasn't that crazy of an idea because spokespeople for the Save the Second organization are saying basically the same thing lately. Now, I'm not claiming that they heard it here first at all. Not claiming that, right? Not the smartest guy that I know. But I am saying that if several of us, them and myself included here, some of whom have never spoken to each other before, are coming to the same conclusion that individual activism is needed, maybe, just maybe, we're onto something here, right? Especially if you look at the current state of the NRA and you consider how effective are they for us right now? How effective are they for anything right now, right? So this all leads me to the point of the episode. Save the Second, the organization, has taken on the significant tasks of not only challenging the NRA to right itself and become the gun rights organization that its members expect it to be, honestly, that we're paying for it to be, they've also taken on the significant task of organizing the Second Amendment rally, in quotes, gathering in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, November 2nd, 2019. That's just under a week from now. And so I'd like for a moment us to talk about maybe why DC is an important location for that event. Some of the things that come to my mind, first of all, if you hold a rally or a protest or anything and you want national attention from the media and also from our lawmakers, what better place than Washington, D.C.? Makes perfect sense to me. Another serendipitous maybe side effect of the fact that it's held in Washington, D.C. is that, honestly, people have to behave themselves a little bit better there. And if you've ever attended a state-centric pro-2A rally or organization organized protest, you've probably seen some of the things that I've seen. You've seen folks with AR-15 rifles slung across their chests, hopefully empty. You've probably seen, firearms of various sorts slung on in holsters, on belts, and things like that. I'm not saying that open carry is a bad thing at all, but I am saying that those things obviously get used by the media, pictures, the videos, to paint gun owners a certain way. And we've all seen those pictures and videos used by anti-2A activists to paint gun owners a certain way. Thinking of one story, and this is kind of anecdotal, but I believe it came out of Ohio, a pro-2A rally there where a gentleman showed up with his AR-15 strung across his chest, and this is during the Obama era, and a mom with her children present, counter-protesting, protesting against the 2A, advocating for gun control, confronted the gentleman. And so some words were exchanged, and she, of course, felt intimidated and threatened by this man that had a weapon across his chest. The gentleman had brought the weapon there to signify, this is my AR-15. This is America's service rifle. This is a freedom rifle. These are all things that most gun owners would look at it and say, yeah, hey, I've got an AR-15. It's not near as scary and intimidating and more deadly than other weapons or other rifles, than anything else. It's just that the media has chosen to demonize it. But people on the other side of the issue, they look at it a completely different way, right? So it might be kind of serendipitous that DC is an area where, and we'll talk about this here in just a few more minutes. It's an area where gun owners have to leave their objects at home, their firearms at home, and We have to protest a different way. I'm on record, even locally, of telling people that I feel like your holster is not not really an advocacy tool. It's not the voting booth. The voting booth is where you affect change. Holster is not really a good political statement, and that's not why I choose to carry a gun. I suspect that most of you, it resonates with you. That's not the reason that you carry a gun either. We all have, perhaps different reasons, but fundamentally same. Why we choose to be armed for our own self-defense and protection and self-sufficiency and so on, right? Some of you have very personal stories where, you've sworn to never be a victim again. And, it's a powerful story. That story, honestly, can be told without a firearm present. And I would say that some people are more receptive to the story if a firearm isn't present, that they can see that, will intimidate and scare and close their ears and close their minds and, cause them to focus on and fixate on an object instead of the issue. And I think that's been the problem, really all along with gun control, especially in the wake of tragic events where people focus on an object. They fixate on the gun instead of the issue. So anyway, I feel like this episode is timely for the Second Amendment rally gathering in Washington, D.C. on November 2nd. But honestly, it applies for any Second Amendment rally or activism now or in the future. So what exactly is this all about, right? Why is this episode not for you and for somebody else? Well, sometimes we, the gun community, can be our own worst enemy. And the other side is counting on that to happen. Without fail, they exploit it and use it against us every chance they get. And all too often, I feel like we make it easy for them. So maybe to make this a little bit simpler, and again, this is going to be kind of a short episode because it's going to be kind of a blast through a list here, right? I want to propose some do's and don'ts for participating in pro-Second Amendment protests or rallies or demonstrations, for winning hearts and minds, for being very effective at getting our message across, and also being cautious to not paint ourselves in a bad light and provide the other side more things to use against us. So, the first one, don't dress like you're going to war. Leave the camo at home. Leave the tacky, inappropriate, but generally hilarious t-shirts and other garb at home, right? My suggestion would be, even if it's not something you do every day, dress semi-professionally. Dress like you're going to court. In this case, you are. It's the court of public opinion. Dress like you're going to a job interview. Remember that back in episode 42, I believe I made the comment that if you're going to an area, say it's your state capital, or in this case, the nation's capital, and you hope that the lawmakers that we've all elected to represent us, they're not elected leaders, by the way. They're not leading anything. They're elected representatives. If you want them to come out and interact with you and listen to you and have a dialogue with you and hear your thoughts and your concerns and your complaints and hear about what's important to you and so forth, you need to make it welcoming for them. And you need to make it safe for them. And by that, I'm saying make it safe for them to appear on video and in photo with you, right? Fair or not, politicians generally, they base a lot of interaction with people on how's this going to be, used against me or for me in the future. And it may not be right. It's not really what we elect them to do, but we have to kind of acknowledge that that's the world that they live in and set ourselves up for success so that they want to interact with us. I would counter that if you, or I would propose rather, that if you show up to an event like this and you're dressed like a militia member, the bad kind, you're everything that the media wants a rabid, foaming at the mouth gun owner to be, your elected representatives probably aren't going to want to, come meet with you and be seen on camera with you. And that doesn't really benefit anything. it can be, sure, it can be a middle finger expressing your individuality and your freedom to dress and act and, express yourself however you want to be or however you want. It's First Amendment rights to do that to an extent. But, it doesn't really attract the people that we want to attract. Think about the old adage that you attract bees with honey. And if you want to attract flies, you use something else. So I would encourage you to, again, dress somewhat professionally, dress clean, dress just neat, dress like all the boring vanilla people that you see at the grocery store or at soccer games or whatever else. Dress normal, dress like Americans, dress like the Norman Rockwell America. Just be yourselves, right? All races, all creeds, all colors, everybody together to show that this is not a right. The Second Amendment is not a right for any one group of people, but it's for everybody. But do it in a way that, again, doesn't turn people away because of appearances. Along the same lines, I would encourage you to do not bring your rebel flags, militia banners, tasteless signs, or other polarizing accoutrements. We've all seen these things at 2A rallies, and they always end up being used by the media as a caricature of a gun owner. You know which ones I'm talking about, right? You see the guy that is there with the rebel flag or whatever else, and he looks like a separatist. And I'm not here to weigh in on whether or not I feel like the rebel flag, the Confederate flag, is a racist symbol or not. The problem is it has baggage, and while we're not necessarily authoring these rules for engagement, we need to play by them if we want to attract the right kind of attention and not attract the wrong kind. So in this particular case, maybe consider leaving that stuff at home. What I would bring is the American flag, or bring your state flag, fly your state colors. Pride organizations, those of you that, Pink Pistols and things like that, bring your flags too. Again, we want to show that the Second Amendment is for everyone. I would bring signs reinforcing that the 2A is it's a fundamental freedom. It's the freedom that protects all other freedoms. Maybe consider bringing signs that speak to professional organizations, right? Doctors for gun ownership, things like that. Bring those signs. Again, make firearms ownership and a desire to protect the Second Amendment an American issue, a human issue. It's as relevant as wanting clean water to drink or clean air to breathe. Next, don't harass the media. So sure, it's tempting, right? It's tempting to tell the media what you think about them. And I would caution you that if you do that, they're absolutely going to run that story if you do, right? I would instead suggest that we all be respectful and polite and avoid being dragged into a war of words. Keep your statements short and simple. Because if you're like me, you can't even say war of words without getting a little tongue-tied. If your statements are short and simple and they're based in fact and not hype and hyperbole, then it's hard to use that against you, right? So if you're going to be engaging or engaged by the media, be nice. Just be nice. Thank them for being there. Thank them for covering it. Welcome them. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for this. Do you see all these people? Point out positive things in the crowd. Look at this. Look at this sea of folks that don't necessarily look like me and you. Look at the sea of folks that represent, citizens of this country from all 50 states or whatever, the constituents of the rally are. Point out these positives. Swing the focus away from the negative, especially if they try to lure you into that with a question. Try to spin it. If you can think on your feet quickly, turn it back around. If you can't, just say, hey, I don't see that here. I don't really agree with that. I'm sorry. I believe that the Second Amendment is a foundational human freedom that recognizes the right of the person to have the means to protect themselves, from all manner of oppression and harm and evil, whether that's from an individual or from a government. I guess kind of in that same line, I would say don't get sucked into arguments with counter protesters and anti-2A demonstrators. That one's gonna be hard, right? Because these folks, they absolutely want you to get sucked into that. They absolutely will be videoing it for social media. And these folks don't have the same rule of engagement that the news networks do. The news networks, you're generally not going to find a news anchor, an on-the-scene reporter that's willing to call you names and belittle you and taunt you to try to get a reaction. They're not going to do that. They're going to be a little bit smarter than that, a little bit more coy, a little bit more slick. But counter protesters, anti-2A demonstrators, man, they're going to say every manner of thing that they possibly can to get a reaction from you. Some of them just because they want to fight, right? Some of them because they absolutely believe that they're right and they hate you. And they hate the fact that you're supporting gun rights because guns are scary and bad. Completely foregoing the logic that, again, we're fixating on an object and not the issue. But it's become very common to see those videos go viral. If they can suck somebody in that's on the other side and get them to return tit for tat and, call them names back or threaten them or, red-faced, spit-flying, shouting match with each other, they want to go viral with that. God forbid they get one of us to, throw a punch or something, silly like that. Even if they threw the first one, don't think for a second that they, don't edit those things and make it look like we didn't. So yeah, just avoid that the best you can. Again, be respectful and polite, but watch your six. Have situational awareness. Hopefully, those of you going to D.C. won't have to deal with that. I would hope that the Washington, D.C. police are going to provide a presence there to protect everyone, right? But these types of rallies, so far, they haven't been attacked by Antifa or other groups, but, there's always the first time for everything. So be careful. Watch what's going on around you. Have some situational awareness. And, my suggestion, honestly, is, you're probably going to use mass transit to get to and from an event like this, especially in a big city like, DC, or you're going to be walking. Go in groups. There's safety in numbers. Stick together. Don't be the lone person walking away from this with your pro 2A propaganda in your hands or on your person. That could make you a target for people that are chickens and cowards and are looking for an easy fight. They want somebody easy to take out their aggression on. So don't give them that opportunity. Thinking about protection and how to protect yourself in an environment like this. Wow, that's a interesting thought considering DC and the laws there, right? I think the next thing I would encourage, not you, the listener, because again, you're smart and savvy and responsible and good looking and all those things. I'm so jealous of you. Don't inadvertently commit a crime by carrying a gun or ammo or a firearms magazine, even, aka a clip, or any other sort of prohibited weapon in a place where you're not allowed to do so. A lot of jurisdictions have laws about what can be carried to a protest or what can't, especially with the rise of the violent protesters like Antifa and such. Showing up to a protest with a weapon of any sort is a recipe to be detained by the police, questioned by the police, arrested by the police, etc. What I would say is do make yourself aware of the laws of the land. Scour your baggage thoroughly before heading to the airport or before driving into Washington, D.C. or through other states or municipalities that hate freedom and have draconian laws. I've got friends that have made very simple, honest mistakes, right? They have a backpack, favorite backpack that they lug to the shooting range with a lot of their stuff in it. And I have one friend in particular I'm thinking of that, didn't realize that he had, a couple loose rounds of 9mm or some loose rounds of 5.56 rolling around the bottom of the bag that had fallen out of an ammo box. And so he took that bag and he repurposed it. Because again, it's his favorite backpack. And, he threw his stuff in it to travel and go, hop on an airplane to, travel for work or whatever. And TSA found the loose rounds. Interesting conversation. Thankfully it worked out for him in the end, but it wasn't cheap. Legal representation to make that go away wasn't cheap. I know a friend that, accidentally found himself in Washington, D.C. with a high capacity magazine in a bag that was, again, used for kind of like, multi-purpose, use it for a lot of different things. This individual actually a member of the armed forces, and, not unusual to have, some spare mags thrown in one of their, backpacks for things. And it was caught. Thankfully, that turned out well too. Ugly situation. Those situations might not turn out so well for, average Joe or average Joanne, going to the nation's capital to a protest or a rally. So I think it might be helpful to review some of the laws in Washington, D.C., since it's such a timely conversation. And just, talk about some of the things that you need to know about the laws before you head there. So what are the gun laws in Tennessee, right? You cannot carry in a vehicle. You must notify an officer if you're carrying with a permit. That's the only way you're carrying, folks, in D.C. You're going to have a D.C. permit. Thinking about permits and things like that, it's kind of helpful to understand how reciprocity with Washington, D.C. works. So states that honor a Washington, D.C. carry permit, 21 states recognize resident, non-resident, kind of a mixture there. Different states fall in and out depending on whether or not you're looking at it as resident or non-resident. 21 states honor Washington, D.C. permits. How many states do you think Washington, D.C. honors? Give you a second. Because I'm going to have a swig of my bourbon here. Think about this. So 21 states honor it. How many does Washington, D.C. honor reciprocity? 0, zilch, goose egg, none, not a single one of them. 29 states also don't recognize or honor Washington, D.C. permits, right? So Washington, D.C., there is no such thing as your gun permit from your home state being valid in Washington, D.C. That's not a thing. Anybody's ever told you that? They're wrong. Not it at all. So Tennessee does issue non-resident pistol licenses, and the application process for that is exactly the same as a resident application. However, if you're listening to this anytime between, say, the 28th of October and November 2nd, 2019, you have not enough time, 0 time, to get an application put in to get a non-resident permit to carry your gun with you to Washington, D.C. for the Second Amendment rally happening on November 2nd. So the other thing you need to remember is that any firearm you plan on carrying in Washington, D.C., if you do have a permit, has to be registered in the district. If you've got a new gun and you haven't registered it with Washington, D.C., with the police, you're not carrying that in Washington, D.C., even if you've already got a permit. So other things to consider that I found, being pretty interesting about this, is essentially ammunition. This is a crazy one, right? Ammunition. You can if you have a concealed carry license issued by the chief of police, you can carry ammunition while carrying the pistol, but not more ammunition than is required to fully load the pistol twice. And in no event shall that amount be greater than 20 rounds of ammunition. So think about this for a second, folks. First of all, don't take ammunition, loose ammunition. Scour your bags. Do not take it or even allow it to be taken with you. If it makes it through the TSA checkpoints, it doesn't matter if the Washington police find it, your goose is cooked, right? But let's say you've got a permit for carry in Washington, D.C. And let's say that you carry a Glock 19, which has a 15-round standard capacity magazine. Yeah, you can get 10-round mags if you live in a non-free state, but let's just say you don't live in one of those sucky places and you have a full standard capacity magazine, 15 rounds, okay? You cannot carry, according to this this statute, which is statute 2343.1, you can't carry more than 20 rounds. So you couldn't, as you work through the law, as you work through the statute, you can't carry more than ammunition than is required to fully load the pistol twice. 2 times 15, 30. However, you're capped at 20 rounds of ammunition. So you can carry a 15 round and a and a 10 round, or you can carry, now you can't even do that, right? Man, look at that. Math is killing me. You can't even do that. You carry a 15 round and a 5 round. You carry 2 10 rounds. Anyway, other thoughts. Gun laws in Washington. Certain classes of people are permitted to possess ammunition in D.C. If you're thinking about buying a firearm and you haven't bought it yet, you got to register that firearm first before you can do it. And then once you have the registration of the firearm, you're allowed to purchase or be in possession of ammunition, but only ammunition of the same gauge and caliber as your registered firearm. So, for example, if you bought a 9mm, you can only have 9mm ammo. If you don't own a 45, you can't own any 45 ACP. If you own a 12 gauge, you can own 12 gauge ammo. If you don't own a 30-06, you better not have 30-06 ammo. It's ridiculous, right? Knife laws, right? So most people think, okay, well, hey, if I can't carry a gun, I'm going to fall back and I'm going to carry my knife. Knife laws in DC are a little bit hairy too. It's legal to own practically anything, including swords, except for a switchblade. That's the only, there are no other knives that are banned from possession, as far as I can tell from doing a little bit of research in DC, other than the switchblade. Now, the kicker is you can't conceal carry dangerous weapons. And this is DC Code 22-4504, which was ratified and passed, I guess, in 2012. It says that carrying concealed weapons, possession of weapons during commission of crime, a violence penalty, no person shall carry within the District of Columbia, either openly or concealed on or about their person, a pistol or any deadly or dangerous weapon capable of being so concealed. So since some knives can be dangerous weapons, and this was determined by various court cases, you can't carry a concealed knife, or you can't conceal carry a knife that has no utility use. Knives that are used as tools are fine to carry concealed, or you can carry concealed or open, but everything else, nada, right? So do you want to spend time arguing whether or not your knife had utility value or not? It's basically leave your knife at home. Don't carry your knife. It doesn't have any utility purposes. And if you do carry it and are caught, realize that you may be hiring very expensive legal representation to argue that your knife has a utility purpose and that it's not a deadly weapon. Because if it were, it's just a felony charge. So unfortunately, probably better off leaving your knife at home. Less lethal options, pepper spray. Well, according to the research I did, it looks like it's legal. This is from the Metropolitan DC Police Department's own website. It's legal to possess self-defense sprays like pepper sprays in DC, as long as they are a mixture of certain chemicals. And I'll paste this link in the show notes because I'm not going to read this off. The chemical list. I'm not even doing math well tonight. I'm not going to try to read this stuff, but it has to be a spray that's propelled from an aerosol container. It has to be labeled with clearly written instructions for use, dated with its anticipated useful life, and you can only use it as a reasonable force to defend yourself or your property, and only if the self-defense sprays meet the requirements above. So again, if you protect yourself, it's not unusual to have to prove that the method that you used was not overbearing force. It was appropriate force. But again, you're going to have to do this in DC and hire expensive legal representation to do it. So not trying to dissuade you from going, but I am trying to just at least get you to think about the things that you probably shouldn't carry. And again, maybe why just strengthen numbers, traveling in a group of people, a pack of people is probably better than trying to, unfortunately, probably better in this case, and trying to defend yourself mano a mano, with the tools that you might have normally been able to enjoy in your free state of residence. So finally, I just want to remind everybody that you're representing all of us whenever you attend a Pro 2A rally or a demonstration. And again, not talking to our audience. You guys are smart. We're talking to the folks that you want to refer to this episode. A lot of gun owners, they tend to be very libertarian, small L, very important distinction there. When it comes to matters of owning guns, it's a self-sufficiency thing, right? We tend to believe that and I'm speaking for myself here, we should be able to take care of ourselves. But we also want to be left alone, live and let live. Unfortunately, sometimes that transcends into no one gets to tell me how to live. And that's fine, right? But I would ask you to please remember that we're all in this thing together. And while we mutually all benefit from the 2A existing, somewhat paradoxically, we can individually undermine the cause through our actions and the way we choose to represent gun owners in general. Think about this for a moment. When's the last time you saw a news story about a mass casualty event, a mass shooting, a mass killing spree, where the media focused on that one individual and said, hey, you know what? This is one bad apple. This is not indicative of all gun owners. I can't think of an incident of that. They grudgingly admit it if at all. And they definitely use words to shade it in such a way that it doesn't sound like that's the conclusion that you, the reader, or you, the news viewer, are supposed to interpret it. They always do it in such a way that it says this individual is representative of the whole, because there's an agenda there, right? The agenda is, let's get rid of 2A. Let's get rid of gun ownership because, hey, let's face it. Most of these news organizations are owned by a very small number of people. And those small number of people have a big axe to grind about this. So as much as you may hate to hear it, as much as it may rub you the wrong way for me or anyone else to say it, please help the cause by putting your best face forward. Don't be that guy or gal that provides the next juicy bit of ammo for the anti-2A media and gun control organizations to use against us. Make a conscious decision for the duration of whatever event you're participating in to be the best representative of gun ownership and the Second Amendment that you possibly can be. And honestly, folks, if all of us take that to heart anytime we're interacting with the public at large about gun issues and having conversations with those that are on the other side of the issue and are curious about it or just opposed to gun ownership, if we make a conscious effort, a conscious decision to put our best face forward and not fall into traps and not fall into arguments, not resort to shouting and hyperbole and offensive tactics and offensive shirts and signs and techniques and whatever else, and engage them calmly, intelligently, and listen to their concerns and mirror those concerns. Oh, you want your children to be safe? I want my kids to be safe too, right? If we find mutual ground with each other, we might find that the other side is being manipulated by, those that would love to see the 2A done away with for their own reasons. And, they've just fallen for some of the clickbait and the speaking points that you, the intelligent, smart, good-looking, well-to-do, got everything going for you, listener of this show, haven't fallen for because you've seen through the lies. So that's it for this episode. I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to again ask you to be sure to listen, to share this episode with that person that you know who really needs to hear it for all of our sakes. Looking ahead, we're barreling straight towards the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season, and that means there really aren't many episodes of Shooters Nation left for 2019. Mark and I are definitely going to take some time off towards the end of the year to spend time with our families. We hope that you're going to be doing the same thing. But we've still got a few more things to talk about in the next few weeks before we get there. So, closing thoughts for our audience. You can connect with us at shootersnation.com and on facebook.com/shootersnation. On Instagram, you'll find us as @shootersnationradio. You can reach me by email at david@shootersnation.com. And you can reach Mark at mark@shootersnation.com. I want to thank those of you right here that have stopped lately taking time out of your day to send us an email and let us know how we're doing, and that you've been encouraging. You've said positive things that I think is wonderful. We'll see how it is after this episode, right? But thank you for that. It fuels the desire to keep this thing going. And honestly, folks, as busy as things have been lately, I carved time out, not asking for a medal here. I carved time out to record this episode because, you guys keep it, you motivate me to keep doing this stuff. And I know you motivate Mark as well. And he said he hates that he couldn't be here, but thank you for all the kind words and keep that stuff coming. Right. And also definitely keep it coming when we're steering off track and we're starting to get into territory. You think that, hey, this sucks. You guys need to straighten this up or fix this. We want to know the bad stuff too. So don't hold back. Let us know. You can send all those comments to mark@shootersnation.com. If you're in the market for a new holster or other firearms gear, be sure to head over to Mark's website, squaredawaycustoms.com, to check out what he and the gang have ready for you. I want to remind you that Squared Away Customs manufactures custom Kydex holsters and other carry gear for civilians, law enforcement, and military. Be sure to use coupon code SHOOTERSNATION, all one word, SHOOTERSNATION, to save yourself some cash. We also want to thank U.S. Law Shield for helping make this episode possible. If you're not yet a member of U.S. Law Shield, be sure to visit shootersnation.com/U.S. Law Shield to get 2 months free with an annual membership. Just click that link. shootersnation.com/U.S. Law Shield. Visit shootersnation.com. You'll find the U.S. Law Shield banners and such. Click it. Takes you on over there. You don't need to know anything else. There's no referral code. It's done all automatically for you. And again, save the money. Get 2 free months with an annual membership. I'll tell you this. I was a member of U.S. Law Shield, a customer of theirs, before they approached us and said, one of the representatives approached us and said, hey, we'd like to sponsor the show. Could we? Heck yeah, you can. Because I'm one of those guys that I don't have a spare $50,000+ sitting around in a bank account. You might, again, successful Shooters Nation listener that you are, you might have that money laying around your bank account to afford to protect yourself after you've protected yourself, right? I don't. And so this is a thing that for me, I was glad to be a customer. I did my own research. I felt like they were a good thing going. But if you don't choose them, folks, please consider choosing one of their good competitors. Do your research. I think you'll find that U.S. Law Shield comes out on top or near the top. But look around. Don't choose poorly. Get somebody that's really gonna be there for you and protect you. In the legal system, in the justice system. It's more of a legal system, folks. But in the legal system to protect you after you've protected yourself or your family. That's it for this episode. We'll talk to you again very soon. Until then, get trained, carry a tourniquet, be hard to kill, carry your gun every day. And you know what? Just be nice to each other until it's time to not be nice. And then be the most not nice person you possibly can be and win that fight. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.